Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Beneath the Surface. Before I begin today's episode, I would like to just take a second to thank everyone for all of the love and all of the support on the podcast so far. The amount of viewers and listeners that I have received, and the comments and the feedback and the questions, I have truly never felt more supported ever. This podcast has been like a dream project of mine for years, and during COVID I had come up with this first concept to start a podcast called Tea Time with Austin, and I never really grasped the idea of what it really meant to hold like podcast, or like to record, I should say. And I did it for like a little bit, but it was nothing serious. But actually doing this for real and seeing it, my logo come up on Apple Podcasts when I open the app, it is a beautiful feeling. And to see the amount of people that love and support this podcast, it goes without saying how much it means to me. This podcast is only beginning, and it has been a beautiful journey so far, and I cannot wait for it to keep going. And I thank you all for the feedback and the comments and the questions, and I want you all to keep the comments and keep the questions coming, because this is a podcast that, yes, I record, but this is a podcast that you're listening to, and I want to know what you want to hear. I want to know what you want to talk about, because that's what I'm here to do. And so I just wanted to take a second and thank you all so much. And I really hope that as this podcast flourishes and continues, that we can together create a safe and inclusive space where everybody feels welcome and everybody feels heard, because that is what it's all about. So I feel like, looking back on the past two episodes that I posted, they've been relatively a little dark. And I know that with mental health, the topic, it can be very dark and it can be very sad, but I also want to embrace the good and I want to embrace the positives. And if I'm being honest, this week has been a really big week for me. I passed the two tests that I needed to, and I am now a licensed cosmetologist. And I'm not going to lie, I am over the moon. I can't believe that it's happened. I'm so proud of myself and all of the work that I put into this. A little bit of backstory into that is, back in 2022, I had a plan. I was going to college to study psychology, and then I started a job working in a hair salon, and it all started there. And from 2020 on, after I dropped out of college, I said, I want to go to beauty school. I want to go to beauty school. And it took me 2 years to actually commit to it. And I did it 1,000 hours in school. I, I did it, and it feels amazing. And you'll hear more about it in the next podcast, just a little bit. But for this episode today, I wanted to really talk about it. And there's one poem in my new book, The Journey Home, that I want to dive into a little bit. And I want to talk about that feeling, because one thing that I've noticed, and I've done a lot of research starting this podcast, because I want to make sure that I'm, not just talking to talk. And of course, a lot of this is my point of view and my perspective on mental health. And I kind of just wanted to know a little bit more of the, I guess you can say, professional standpoint on mental health. And a lot of it is sad, and a lot of it talks about the depression and the anxiety and, things like that. But I also want to celebrate the good moments, because especially with somebody that suffers from depression, it is a beautiful thing to feel good and feel happy. And I just want to put this out there as a little disclaimer. Just because I say I'm happy, or you say you're happy and you're, feeling great, that doesn't mean that depression just went away, because it didn't. And I wish it did. I wish I could say, oh, I'm cured, but I know that I'm not. Because even amidst this, 20 minutes, not even before I found out I got my license, I was down in the dumps. I was really sad and I was really depressed, and I was having a bad day, and that didn't just go away. But hearing the news that I passed and I got my license and I made my dreams come true, that helped me feel just a little bit better. And those depressive thoughts and feelings, they didn't go away. They were just helped a little bit, I would say. And so this poem that I'm about to read you is a poem that really means a lot to me, because the one thing I can say for certain is, it took me a really long time to find myself and to heal and to grow and to feel good about myself. And getting to write this poem, and this poem being the last one in the book, really hits home for me, because I never thought I could write a positive poem. I always thought, I'd always write dark poems and be sad and be depressed. And to see that, there is a light at the end of the tunnel is amazing. And so I wanted to just celebrate that a little bit today, because this week has been amazing and it's been a whirlwind. And I'm so excited that, this is just the beginning of my career. And so I'm just going to read you this poem, and I want to dissect it a little bit, and I kind of want to just talk about this and really live in the positive moments, because that's what it is that's what this is all about, is to help and to, you know, guide people to feeling this way. I would love to hear people more often talk about the positives of what happens when you get the help and you work to getting a better mindset and a healthier coping mechanism for depression. And so this poem is called Becoming Me. Today, standing here, the only thing I feel is proud. Over the past few years, I've focused on one thing: becoming the version of me that I like. The version others might like too. And now when I look in the mirror, I think I found him. It took time, it took pain, it took honesty, but he's here now, and I don't want to let that go. The work is far from over. Finding him, that was the easy part. The hard part is continuing to grow, to show up, and to protect what I've built. Becoming yourself is one thing. Staying yourself, that's where the real work begins. And I want to start with talking about this. I want to start at the end with, you know, finding myself and finding this new positive version of myself. That was the easy part, because it is easy to work and to feel this way. And then it's easy to just give up on everything that you've done in the past because you feel great. The hardest part is continuing to work at it and maintaining the happiness, because it's easy to get there, but it's harder to maintain it. And that is one thing that I've learned over time. I think the biggest stigma, or you could say, or the biggest myth you can hear is that, oh, once you feel happy, you're done. You don't have to go to therapy anymore. You don't have to, you know, do anything anymore. And that's a lie. I'll tell you straight, because I've always felt, oh, when I feel this way, I don't have to go to therapy anymore. I don't have to take my antidepressants anymore. I don't have to work to, maintain my happy levels and my depression and things like that. And I was very wrong. And I had to learn that the hard way. And it sucked to have to learn it that way. But, it is a part of, it's a part of the journey. And if I can advocate and if I can say it loud enough, is once you feel yourself, keep going, because you're only be just beginning. And that's why I really feel like the ending of this is so beautiful. And the last line, staying yourself, that's where the real work begins. I think that is so strong. And I think it is so important that people really hear that and feel that, because like I said, I can speak from experience. It is easy to find yourself. And I'm not saying that technically speaking, the road to get there is easy, but it's easy to give up once you've gotten to that point. I'm going to go from bottom to top and let's dissect this poem together. So in the poem, I say, I think I found him. It took time, it took pain, it took honesty. And this is one beautiful thing because in my experience with my mental health, I, for a long time, let my mental health, define me, and I let it control my life, and it destroyed a lot of relationships, and it really put a big damper on, my life. And the thing I had to learn over time was, you know, if you're gonna just let this be your life, you're never gonna feel the way you want to feel. And what I mean by that is, if you let your depression get to a point where you just give up, then what are you doing? And that's in my experience, it's what are you doing? Because there are so many things that you could do to help yourself, that it hurt me. It hurt my family because my depression got to a point where I started to do things that I'm not proud of. And it affected a lot of my life. It affected 2 years of my life. And it took me to see that and look from an outside perspective, and see the change that needed to be done, but then to put in the work to change, for me to get to now this point of, you know, the next step in the road to healing. Because just because I found myself and I am feeling great doesn't mean that I am, you know, healed. There's a lot of things that have happened that I'm still healing from, and I'm still, coming back from, because those things still weigh on me every day. And so I think it's so important, and that's one of the reasons why this poem is so special to me, is because I feel like with this, people can see that, yes, I've put in the work, I've put in the time, I've put in the courage and the persistence, but it's not over yet. And so the next part of this that I wanted to dissect was, I focused on one thing: becoming the version of me that I like, the version that others may love too. And I think this is so beautiful because for a long time, I wasn't, like I had said before, I wasn't proud of the person I was or the person I was becoming. And I saw that people didn't like that either. And before you can fix your relationships with other people, you have to fix your relationship with yourself. And you have to be good with you before you can be good with anybody else. And that is a really beautiful thing that I've carried with me, because a lot of times that I have a bad habit of being a people pleaser and being whoever, or the version that people want me to be for them. But it was, what do I get in return for that? Or what do I gain from it? And the truth is, I don't gain anything. I gain more hurt in the end, because at the end of the day, you can only please people so much. But the one person that you're displeasing is yourself. And so it took me a long time to please myself and to make myself happy so that I can make others happy. And by me being my true authentic self, fixing and doing the work that I need to do for me is going to positively affect the people around me. And it took me a embarrassingly long, I'll say, time to realize that. And unfortunately, when I realized that, it was a little too late for some people and for some relationships. And so that's why I feel like it's so strong. And I can say it again and again and again. I feel like this poem is by far one of my favorites from this entire book, because it is so meaningful in so many different ways. And the feedback that I have gotten on this poem has been amazing, because it's relatable, and it goes to one of the questions that a viewer had asked me is, why did I choose poetry and why did I choose to publish these poems in particular? And I think that is such a beautiful question. And the true answer is I wrote these poems at a time in which I felt them. And there are some poems that I did write for this book particularly, but some of these poems, if not most of them, and I could tell you all of the poems in my first book, There's a Light, they were all written more so as journal entries. And I wanted to post them kind of as is, not super edited, because it's real and it's authentic and it's true emotion. And I think it's more impactful that way. Because if you see somebody, and I know from my experience, if you see somebody being raw and honest about something, you're more likely to listen than a highly edited version. And I'm very aware that there are some things in these books that can be edited more and professionalized more, but I didn't want that. And there are some people that I had read over the book and they've given me edits and they've made it more professionalism, you could say, and I appreciate those edits, but that's not what my intention is. My intention is to give you something that is raw and that is real and that you can relate to. I can tell you the best poets are the ones that don't edit their poems very much, because from what I've read, and I've gone into a very big deep dive of poetry, is, highly edited poems, yes, they are beautiful and they are amazing, but they don't hold as much meaning and as much emotion as a raw, just smack it on the page as it is. And I want my style of books for poetry, anyways, to be, a journal entry and to kind of just be the words that I feel in the moment. Because I know that what I'm feeling in these poems, 9 out of 10 people that read this also feel those emotions. And so now I want to just touch on that top part, because it it means so much to me, and to the point where it brings me to tears to be able to read this and still feel this, is today standing here, the only thing I feel is proud. And this goes back to what I had said at the beginning of the podcast with getting my license. Is I stand here recording this podcast so proud of myself, because working to get something that you've dreamed of for, whether it be a year, 2 years, 10 years, whatever it may be, but working to that and making it possible is amazing. And I'm aware that not a lot of people get to do that. And it sucks and it's sad. But for me, in my case, I was able to do that for myself, and it means the world to me. And in this sense of the book, standing here today, the only thing I feel is proud is, after everything that I have gone through over the past, 10, 15, 20 years, I survived. I'm here and I'm blessed to have made it this far and to have put in all of this work and to see the outcome. And I can tell you that I look at myself 2 years ago, I don't recognize that person. The actions and the choices that I made, I don't recognize them. I don't understand why a person would do that. But it took me to take a step back and see it from an outside perspective, to see that change needed to be made. And I worked and I strived to make that change possible. And so I think if there's one thing that I want anybody to take away from this poem in particular, is that it's okay to be depressed. It's okay to have anxiety. It's okay to suffer. Not suffer, but it's okay to hurt and to fail. But you can always get back up, and you should always get back up, because there's more to life than just one thing. And there's more to your story. And your story is only beginning. And if you're like me and you're at this stage, and that's amazing, but don't give up because your work is just beginning and your work is just going to keep going. But it's going to get easier with time. The more you put in the work, the less effort you're going to have to put in because it's just going to come so naturally to you and it's going to be a beautiful journey. So, on that note, I'm going to end the podcast here. And I know this one was a short one, but I just feel like today's a great week and I wanted to celebrate that. And I am really proud and honored that I get to share it with all of you. And there may be podcasts that are short and there may be podcasts that are really long. But I hope you all continue to stay on this journey with me because I'm so proud of what I've been able to create and am creating. And I hope you all continue to write me on my website in my little comment section. Write some questions, comments you have, and I would love to talk about it. And I would love to have just one podcast where I answer a bunch of questions because this is what it's all about and this is what it means to me. So I just want to thank you all so much for listening. And I hope you tune in next week. I have a really special podcast planned for next week. I'm really excited. And make sure that you subscribe on all streaming platforms. Bye bye.